بسم الله وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. نويت تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والدعاء على الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. Okay, we're on the 10th year after the hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we have reached basically pretty much the end now as it relates to the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this year, this 10th year after hijrah, is known as Amul Wufud. Okay, Amul Wufud. And this Amul Wufud, which is a year of delegations, and secondly is the farewell pilgrimage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now you. The whole of Arabia has now pretty much become Muslim. Okay, and as we mentioned last week about the battle, Byzantine army. Okay, and they don't turn up, and he says to Sayyidina Umar radiallahu an that like, should we go and Syria is just there? Let's just go and face. Okay, but Sayyidina Umar said, look, still all of Arabia has not become Muslim, so let's try and go back and try and make them Muslim first. Yeah, and so what happened in this year now? You see a lot of the tribes who are not Muslim now come forth and give their pledge, of allegiance to the Prophet and become Muslim. About 60 tribes come forth. Okay, we're not going to mention all of them. We're just going to mention a few and some stories as it relates to that. But what we find is all of these tribes, they don't initially become Muslim. Why? Because they're waiting for the Quraysh. Okay, and they're waiting for what happens in Makkah, because Makkah was traditionally a very sacred place. It was all about Makkah, Kaaba, point. And when the Prophet did the Fath Makkah and took over Makkah, that's it. People knew then the Quraysh, they can't fight the Prophet anymore. Now it's time to kind of really take this seriously. And so we find that quite a few of the tribes, the neighboring tribes in the Arabian Peninsula, gave their allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we'll mention it. One of them came by the name of Bani Tamim. They came to the Prophet ﷺ. And a point to note before we go into it is that what these tribes would do, they wouldn't come, like their whole party wouldn't come. Only their noblemen, their religious men, only their big timers, okay, they'd come and speak to the Prophet ﷺ. And the nature of it was that once those people became Muslim, when they would go back to their people, everybody else would become Muslim because their leader had become Muslim. That's how it was, okay? Because that's how Arabian tribes worked. If the leader said something, that's it. If they were like subservient to it. So if a leader says, "Yani khalas, I've become Muslim," that was the affair. Just like we see that the likes of Sa'd, the leader of the Aus, when he becomes Muslim at the hands of Musab ibn Umair, he comes back to the Aus and says, "Listen, I've become Muslim." He says, "Who am I?" And they're like, "You're a leader. You're Sa'd. You're." And he goes, "Look, I am a Muslim, and if none of you become Muslim now, I'm not going to speak to any of you. They all become Muslim as a result." So this is the nature of a leader, okay? So Bani Tamim come, and these are like a ragtag army, like ragtag group, yeah? They're very kind of like bullish and loud, uncouth, okay? They don't know how to control themselves. They come into Medina, they cause a lot of kind of, they're not very kind of controlling the way they are, okay? And at one point, the Prophet ﷺ is with one of his wives, okay? In his house, and outside the house, they're shouting at him like, "Oh, Rasul, come out, and what's wrong with you?" And, calling for him. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals an ayah in the Quran that those who call out to you from behind your rooms, most of them, they don't know. They don't know. They're not of knowledge. And if they are only patient until you come out to them, that would be better for them. Allah is most forgiving and most merciful. Okay, so Allah gives a direct ayah to these people. Okay, and they were Bedouins. They're like Bedouins that you find. They're uncouth. They're not like trained in basic adab, basic respect. They don't know how. They're not trained in that affair. So what happens is that they have like an interesting encounter. So what happens is that they bring out a poet of theirs, and the poet comes out and starts speaking about the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, So the Prophet ﷺ tells Thabit bin Qais, who was a famous poet of the companions, you go forth and respond. They respond in poetry. Okay. Remember, poetry is powerful. Word was powerful in those days. Word, like you could, cause wars and fights as a result of it. It was very powerful, the word. Okay. So what happens here is that Thabit bin Qais radiallahu anh gives a reply. Okay. Then what they do, Bani Tamim, is they then bring another guy and he responds to that, okay, in poetry. Then the Prophet ﷺ brings forth Hassan bin Thabit, the well-known poet, companion of the Prophet ﷺ, okay, and he comes out and he just gives them a response that just knocks them out. Absolutely, really powerful poetry. And then the leader of Bani Tamim comes to them and says, listen, your orator is better than our orator, and your word is better than our word. So we accept. They became Muslim just as a result of that. That one poet dialogue, that kind of almost, you could say, fight, but in poetry, okay? Like you could say a rap battle, you could say, yeah? They finished them, and as a result of that, they became Muslim. Okay, and this is something for us to reflect upon. That and sometimes we as Muslims, we need to excel in, like, areas of media, art, these kind of like things that are kind of common to non-Muslims in our day and age. We have to excel in that. We have to be part of that. We have to kind of be have skill in that, because that's a da'wah in and of itself. See how the Prophet, these people come with poetry. He didn't say to them, well, listen, can you just calm down, please, and talk to me properly. He then, he gives it back to them in poetry. And so when we try to give da'wah and we try to spread the message, we should be, conscious of the fact that when we excel in areas that the non-Muslims are engaged in, that's a da'wah in and of itself. Yeah, that's a da'wah in and of itself. Okay. Another one of the tribes that comes is by the name of Bani Abdul Qais. So Bani Abdul Qais, they come. There's about 13 of them. Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ, he invites them and treats them very well. And he says to them, you people have two qualities that Allah and His Messenger really, really like. One is hilm, clemency, the ability to do good to a person who does bad, and the second is deliberation. Okay, how you decide on matters. And the leader, he was really, really impressed by that. They're really happy that the Prophet ﷺ was praising them and complimenting them. The leader says, look, I'm a Christian. So if I become a Muslim, the goodness out of my religion, am I still going to keep that? Or is that going to go? The goodness out of my religion, I'm a Christian, is that going to go when I become Muslim? And the Prophet says, no, it's just going to make you better. It's just going to make you much better. Islam hasn't come to destroy, religions, okay? Islam has come, like, what's the good of it? If a good person is good, yani, Islam will just channel that good for that person's success. So they're good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make sure that good is as a result of him gaining Jannah or gaining pleasure of God. And so what the Prophet is teaching here is that it's not about destroying other faiths. Okay, that's not the point. Okay, the point is just making people better, reach their full potential as human beings. Okay, and another one of the tribes was called Banu Hanifa. The leader of Banu Hanifa was somebody by the name of Musaylama. And Musaylama was basically a person who tried to claim to be a prophet after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay. Now Banu Hanifa, they're known, okay, for what we mentioned about Banu Hanifa in the past. What are they known for? Any good sword. Okay. The Prophet sallallahu from two places, either in the Banu Hanifa. They made really good, strong swords. Okay, so what happens is that this person, he comes and he says to the Prophet ﷺ, I'm only going to believe in you if you give me a share of your prophecy. Just give me a little bit of a share. I want to be a prophet as well. Okay, and it goes against the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, because prophecy is not something that's attained; it's something that's chosen. Allah chooses His prophets. You can't just become a prophet. It's something that's chosen by God. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so what happens is that Allah's Messenger says to him, listen, no way, doesn't work like that. Yeah. And he says to when he sees Musaylama come forth, and the Prophet is with Thabit bin Qais, the other poet, and Thabit bin Qais has like a leaf, date palm tree leaf in his hand, and he says, look, even if you were to ask for that leaf from me, I wouldn't give it to you. Okay, I wouldn't give it to you, because he knew that he had bad intentions. His intentions were not sincere. And so what happens is, and he said, look, it all belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The prophecy is not something that I can give you. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordains. Okay. And then Musaylim al-Kadhab, he basically, the Prophet just walks away from him. He says, look, I don't want to have anything to do with him. We will find after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, in his caliphate, he sends an army led by Khalid bin Walid to go and fight Banu Hanifa, because he then come out and said, look, I'm a prophet now. Okay, and he claimed these kind of false prophecy. What happens? Siddiq then sends out an army under the leadership of Khalid bin Walid, and Abu Bakr gives strict instructions: don't leave them alive. What kind of powerful words are they from Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, who is normally a very soft, kind heart, very soft person, and he says, don't leave any of them alive. Okay, so what happens is they go and they're fighting, and it's a vicious war. Okay, now what happens is, as the army is about to approach, the Muslims see that Banu Hanifa, they're out with their swords out. Okay, and that these people, they don't know how to fight, because in war ethics, you never ever have your sword out. It's always shield, and when it's time for battle, you then take out your sword. But walking with their sword ready, and the Muslims are, look, these people are, we'll finish these. They don't know how to fight properly, because they don't know what they're doing. And Khalid said, look, nah, these people there's something else, and they're vicious warriors. They had a vicious fight. What happens is that the Muslims and this Banu Hanifa are fighting, and it gets to a stage where heavy losses are endured on both sides. Okay, now what happens is that halfway through the fight, okay, one of the people says, from the other side, he says, should we have a truce? That's a truce. And Sayyidina Khalid says, no truce, because Abu Bakr said, don't leave any of them alive, kill them all. So he goes, look, we're coming to fight to the death. And so what happens is that this person who said, let's have a truce, he says, uncover some rafters, and all these warriors come out of nowhere. Okay. And then Sayyidina Khalid is like, okay, truce. Yeah, we need to have a truce, because this is like, and the Muslims are, look, no, but we're supposed to kill all of them. He goes, but look, you guys are battered. You guys are finished. Okay. We can't do this. So he says, all right, let's have a truce. So they have a truce at the end of the war. And then these people who were warriors, they take off their armor, and it was just women and children. They're being treacherous. And Sayyidina Khalid says, you treacherous people. Huh? You hid women under in an attempt to scare him. Okay. But word was good. That was the end. Okay, that's what Musaylim al-Kadhab. But here he comes to the Prophet, tries to get prophecy, quote unquote, and the Prophet rejects him. Finally, the last group that we're going to mention is the Christians of Najran, and these were a group from Yemen, and they come to the Prophet and the Prophet wrote them a message, okay, to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believe in the Prophet and don't believe in that which is those who worship. Okay, Yani Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam, don't worship those who are worshippers. Worship the one who should be worshipped, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they refused. Okay, they refused. But then the Prophet then said, right, well, you have to pay the jizya. Okay. So then what they do is then they come to the Prophet to try to have some sort of negotiation with the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So as they come forth, they're very rich. They have a lot of riches from the Byzantine army. Okay. So they come forth with these like beautiful silk clothing and embroidered clothing and all these really kind of snazzy things, yeah. And so the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he doesn't respond to their salam. They greet him and he doesn't respond. He looks away. And so they ask Sayyidina Uthman, like, what's this? Okay. Sayyidina Uthman says, it's because of your dress. So they'll come back and stay dressed as monks, like monks dress like monks robe. Okay. And then the Prophet speaks to them. And an indication of how Islam's about humility. It's not about your snazzy clothes and how good you look. Yeah, it's about humility. So they start to discuss with the Prophet and the Prophet then allows them to come into the masjid and stay in the masjid. And the Rasul starts to give them da'wah about Islam and says to them that, listen, why do you not become Muslim? Believe in Islam. Become Muslim and believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believe in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yeah. And the Christians say, look, we were Muslims before you. Why are you trying to think you're something special? We were Muslims before you a long time ago. Okay. And the the Prophet ﷺ says, you are not Muslims because of three things. Number one, number two, you eat pig meat, and number three, you claim that Allah is a son. Those are the three reasons, yeah? So you claim worship the cross, okay, pig meat, and you believe you are not Muslims because you go against the laws of Islam, okay? And they start saying, why are you bad mouthing Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam? Why are you bad mouthing? He's the son of God. How can you say he's a slave of Allah? How can you say that? Okay? And the Prophet says, indeed he is a slave of God. Indeed he is a worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they say to him, look, have you ever seen a person without a father? Have you ever seen a person who has come into earth without a father? Because that's what Sayyidina Isa was. And they thought that he was then, because of that, he was the father, he was the son of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, because they thought that he didn't have actually a biological father. So do you know anybody who doesn't have a father? You know, that's the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So who's the only other person in the whole of history that doesn't have a father? Adam alayhi salam. Okay, he doesn't have a father because he's created from dust. Yeah. And so Allah ayah to the Prophet sallallahu at that point, Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. Okay, and the Christians, they still don't believe. So then the Prophet sallallahu says, okay, we're going to do something called a mubalaha. And mubalaha is basically like a dua duel. Because we're going to make dua, okay? We'll make dua, you make dua. And the person who dua is accepted, yeah, is other person, the other team, the other side is going to be cursed. So we each make dua that, oh Allah, if we are true, then curse the other side. Okay? Like a battle in dua, yeah? So the Prophet is like, yeah, let's go. So he goes and then these Christians, they bring out their bishops and all their people and everything, like, okay, let's go. And the Prophet, who did he bring out? Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Fatima, Sayyidina Hassan, Sayyidina Hussein, his family. He said, okay. And he says to his family that when I make dua, you just say Ameen. Say Ameen every time. He said, okay. He's about to make dua and the Christians get scared. They think, oh no, if his dua gets accepted, we're going to be cursed for the rest of forever. So they bottle it. And they say, look, let's just have a treaty. They have a treaty, and then the Prophet ﷺ, he makes a treaty with them. They have to pay a jizya, but he gives them many rights and he gives them a lot of things. He told them you can't deal with the interest and be good, upstanding people. And basically from that, the Prophet ﷺ, and he has a treaty with the people of Najran. What happens is, as the people of Najran leave, their leader turns back and becomes Muslim, then goes back. Okay? But in secret, he doesn't in secret, comes back, becomes Muslim, because he realized that khalas, this is the truth. Okay? So this is what happens. Okay? And you find the majority of people now in Arabia, they become Muslim. And those that haven't, they're in treaty with the Muslims in some sort of an agreement, some sort of a treaty. Okay? What's interesting now is that the message, the mission of Islam has been fulfilled. The message of Islam has spread. All of Arabia has become Muslim. Okay? And it's spread, this is what the Prophet ﷺ came for. And what the Prophet ﷺ now does is, now all these various different places, he sends certain companions to go and teach the people about Islam. So of the people that he sends, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, radiallahu anhu, one of the beloved companions of the Prophet ﷺ, he sends him to Yemen to be a judge and to collect zakah, okay, in Yemen, northern Yemen. Likewise, he sends Abu Musa al-Ashari. Again, Musa al-Ashari, he was sent to Yemen for the same thing in a different region. And the Prophet ﷺ counsels these two people, counsels in particular Sayyidina Mu'adh, about how to deal with the people there. He said, look, make things easy, don't make things hard, give glad tidings, okay? And be fair with them. Don't make things difficult for them. And he says to Sayyidina Mu'adh, and he says, Mu'adh, it's possible that you might not see me again. When you come back, you might just see me in my grave, in my masjid. It's possible, okay? And telling him that that's going to be the affair, I said, the Mu'adh starts to cry, because he's really, really upset at that fact that, he's not going to see the Prophet ﷺ again. But he's, Imtathil al-Amr, he obeys the command of the Prophet ﷺ and goes into Yemen, okay? So the Prophet ﷺ now, he's kind of, engaged in about 19 ghazwas, 14-8, about 50, 60 sirayas that he ordered. And the Prophet ﷺ has taken over the whole of Arabia. now the whole of Arabia has been taken over by that one same word. And that same word we believe in. How beautiful is that? Huh? The same word, likewise, we believe in. Okay? So this is the kind of the tribes that come forth, okay, and they try to kind of so obviously accept, some don't. Then we see the farewell pilgrimage, okay, Hajjatul Wada'. This is the final pilgrimage of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sallam. Now the Prophet sallallahu hasn't performed a Hajj in his 9-year period whilst he's been in Medina. He hasn't performed a Hajj, okay, and so what happens is now that the Prophet sallallahu is now going to do Hajj to really teach the people how to do Hajj. Teach them, because initially we spoke about the Hudaybiyah, that was an Umrah. So the Prophet ﷺ now is going to the Hajj to teach them about the Arkan, Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah, all these kind of things, to teach them about that. Okay, so what happens is, the Prophet ﷺ in this year now, the 10th year, certain things that happen that don't normally happen. Like for example, the Prophet ﷺ in Ramadan, he would recite review the whole Quran, that's which has been revealed, to Jibreel alayhi salam. Okay, once Ramadan. In that year, in that 10th year, he reviewed the Quran twice. And also, the Prophet ﷺ would do i'tikaf last 10 days of Ramadan in the masjid, last 10 days. In that year, on the 10th year, he did i'tikaf for 20 days. Okay, and it was a sign, the companions saw it was a sign that he was indeed about to pass away. That would be his last Ramadan, that would be his last year. These all signs, kind of like indirect signs that the Rasul in his time, no doubt, was coming. Okay. Then what happens is that the Prophet what we know about all the different tribes that they've come and the leaders have come and accepted and everything. Yeah, the Prophet has followers that he hasn't even seen yet. He hasn't seen them. Okay. Now what's a Sahabi? What's a companion? A companion is someone who believes in the Prophet ﷺ and has seen him, even if for 1 second, but he's seen him, that qualifies him to be on the station of a Sahabi. That's it. Okay, that's it. Now, a lot of the people hadn't seen him, but believed in him. They hadn't seen him. Like us, we haven't seen him. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, we believe in him. Inshallah, we believe in him, isn't it? So, what the Prophet ﷺ wanted to do, he wanted to have one last opportunity to see all his followers, as many as possible, yeah, and also obviously all followers wanted to see him as well, sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam. Okay, so what he does is then he calls in Dhul Hijjah, he makes a call for everyone to prepare for Hajj. So the companions, they send a message out for Hajj, for the preparations of Hajj. They get to a place called Dhul Hulayfa, and Dhul Hulayfa says that they get to a place called Dhul Hulayfa and they put the ihram in at this point. So they put the ihram at this point, and 100,000 Muslims have gathered. They've gathered, okay, and now they walk towards Makkatul Mukarramah, okay, to the Kaaba, okay. Can you imagine that? 100,000 people, doing Hajj with the Prophet ﷺ in white clothing, all together. You got young people, you got old people, you got women, you got men, you got children, you've got, black people, white people, brown people, everything, all walks of life together on, with 2 garments. That's it. And the Prophet brings everyone together for this final Hajj. Okay, and they recite the famous dhikr that we know, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wan ni'mata laka wal mulk la sharika lak. Okay, here we come, O Allah, here we come, no partner do you have. To you is all praise, and to you is all bounty and all dominion, la sharika lak, and there is no partner to you. Okay, so what happens is these people have come, and they've come with camels to sacrifice as well. Okay, so they go towards Mecca, and the Prophet ﷺ is now teaching them how to do the Hajj. The Prophet ﷺ is on a camel because he doesn't want to. If he's walking normally with people, then 100,000 people can't see him. So he's upon a camel, and he's doing the various rites of Hajj so people can see him. You can see him, and they're asking fiqh questions. What do we do here? What do we do here? What happens here? It's like the Prophet is teaching them, muallim, sallallahu alaihi wa sallam, a teacher. So what happens is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, okay, he goes, okay, and he does tawaf around the Kaaba. Okay, before he starts, he's got a bend on the end, and he comes and he taps, okay, taps the Hajar al-Aswad, okay, the black stone, okay, of the Kaaba, and he touches the stone of the Kaaba, and he says, Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam, fahayyina rabbana bis salam. Oh Allah, you are peace, and from you comes peace. So Allah grant us life, our Lord, with peace. Salam, peace. Okay. And then the Prophet ﷺ, then what he does, he starts to do the tawaf, and he's 7 times around, and he anti-clockwise around the Kaaba, and he starts reciting dhikr and Quran, and whilst he's doing it, okay, teaching the people. Then what he does, he goes to Safa Marwa, okay, the sa'i, and he runs between Safa Marwa 7 circuits, okay, he runs between them, okay. Then he orders, okay, everybody who doesn't have a camel, because there's some people who had camels, majority of them didn't, and they said that everybody who has a camel, they can carry on. People who don't have a camel, they have to stop now. That's it. Umrah, it's like an Umrah, not Hajj. Okay, but that's it. People who had a camel to sacrifice, they can now go forth to Mina. But the people who don't, they have to stop now. And they were upset. But the Prophet said, "Look, this is how it is, and that's the legal requirement as it relates to that." Okay. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, he was one of the people who went. You know, Mu'adh bin Jabal, he went, and Abu Musa al-Ashari, he went. Sayyidina Ali also went, and he was somebody who was going to go to Yemen to collect zakah. Okay, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anh, he finds out about the Hajj, so he comes back from Yemen and catch up with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And obviously the Prophet is very happy to see his own son-in-law has come and done Hajj with him. Then on the 8th day of this Dhul Hijjah, the Prophet goes to Mina, and then he on the 9th he goes to Arafah. And Arafah, Yom Arafah that we know, and the Yom Arafah that we know that we fast on, okay, has lots of blessings in it. The Prophet ﷺ comes there, okay, and he gives his final address. Now, the point of the final address is that it's meant to be like a, you know, like fine. This is like you know, the final word, okay. From this, like the key points of the whole message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the key points. This is the final word that the Prophet wants to say to when all majority of the people are there, okay. And so he says, and we're just going to try and take as many points as we can from it, and inshallah conclude. The Prophet ﷺ says that, "O people, listen to what I say, for verily I do not know if I'm going to meet you after this year." Okay, people start to cry when they hear that, because they realize that this could be one of the last times that they're ever going to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he says, you know, have I conveyed the message to you or not? Allahumma ashhad. Oh Allah, bear witness. Okay, Allah, bear witness that indeed I have conveyed the message. And then he starts to say, whoever has a trust, whoever's taken a trust of another Muslim, then he should return that trust to him. Okay, whether they've taken money, whether they've taken property, whatever they've taken on trust, they should return that. Okay, and any type of evil practice in the times of Jahiliyyah, any type of blood feuds, all this is crushed under my feet, he said. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said all positions, all posts and positions in the times of Jahiliyyah are destroyed, except two. One, when maybe some of you remember when the first time we were in Makkah, in the Meccan period, where you know the Banu Hashim, they would give water to the pilgrims. Remember? Yeah. So here that will still continue. Okay, you still be a service to the pilgrims, and also the looking after of the Kaaba. So the keys of the Kaaba, okay, still going to be looked after. Otherwise, everything else, all leadership is totally destroyed. Those are the only two posts that are going to remain. He says that truly Shaitan, okay, he's upset because this land is a land which worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what Shaitan will be happy with is that, you know, when you deem your bad deeds as insignificant and trivial. That's what Shaitan tries to make you do. You can do, you know, whisper to you, you know, in such a way that you end up doing bad, but the worst thing that Shaitan can do upon you is to make you think that your bad deeds are nothing. Oh, it's minor. Nothing. That's one of the worst things that Shaitan can do, because then that puts you in a trap. You think, well, it's nothing. When in reality, your bad deeds are, you know, very problematic, something you should really ponder upon. Okay? He mentions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that You have a right over your women, and they have a right over you. Okay, your right is that your women should never allow anybody else to enter their beds, and they should never allow anybody else to enter their house, their houses. So a woman is not allowed to let people come into their house except with the permission of the man. Okay, that can sometimes be radical, but there's a hikmah and a wisdom behind that. Okay, about how a wife should not be subservient, but for the harmony of the marriage, keep husband in the loop, quote unquote. Be concerned of your women. They are your captives, and they have to be protected. Women, if left on their own, they have nothing. They have nothing. You know. So be concerned. Look after your women. That's what the Prophet ﷺ is teaching. Okay. He says that all believers are brothers, and it's not permissible for you to take the wealth of another except by consent. Okay, and he's destroying kind of the practices of jahiliyyah, what the people used to do before prophecy. Okay, and he also says that do not return to kufr, disbelief, after I've left. I've left you two things that you need to hold on to: the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I've left these two things for you. Okay, and he also mentioned your Lord is one, your forefather is one, yani Adam alayhi salam. That's your real father. Okay, and he was from dust. The best of you, and it basically bringing you back down to reality. You just dust, nothing more. That's all you are. You just dust. And the greatest of you is those who is most pious. Person who has most taqwa, he's the most greatest. Okay, he's the greatest in that affair. No Arab has has no virtue over a non-Arab. Okay, and he's destroying racism, destroying discrimination, destroying any type of unfair treatment. Okay, and then he says, on the day of judgment, you're going to be asked about me. What are you going to say? What are you going to say about me? And the people said, we bear witness that you have conveyed the message. And the Rasul says, Allahumma ashhad, Allahumma ashhad, Allahumma ashhad. Oh Allah, bear witness. Oh Allah, bear witness. Oh Allah, bear witness. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. He left, gave salam. Okay? These are the kind of things that he mentioned in the final thing. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, really powerful ayah. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam deena. Okay? Today I perfected your religion, completed my favor upon you, and I have been pleased for Islam to be your religion. Okay? A very kind of all-encompassing prayer, all-encompassing ayah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many people were happy with that, the deen's complete and sorted. But the companions, the true companions, lovers of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they got upset because they realized the mission of the Prophet is over. That's it. It's all been done. Everything that wanted to be, any objectives that wanted to be fulfilled, any aims, it's all finished. It's all over. And they got upset because they realized that, that was the purpose of the life of the Prophet ﷺ, to spread the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of Tawheed. Okay? And Sayyidina Umar says, why are you so upset? And he goes, look what Allah says, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum. On the day, today I perfected your religion. He goes, after perfection, it's only deficiency. When you get to perfection, it just gets worse after that. That's the reality that Sayyidina Umar said. And then the Prophet ﷺ said something really interesting, and we're going to close on this. The Prophet ﷺ told his companions to convey everything that was mentioned, to people who weren't there. Who are those people who weren't there? That's me and you. We were not there on that day of Arafah when the Prophet ﷺ gave that message, And so the fact that we are able to mention the life of the Prophet ﷺ, mention this affair, and it's from the blessings of God Almighty that we are able to do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the opportunity that we're still able to do, still able to, mention and remember the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes back to Mina. He gets his head shaved, and he sacrifices some animals, and he does the final farewell tawaf, okay, and he basically finishes the Hajj. Now, a few other things to mention about this year. that Sayyidina Ibrahim, the son of the Prophet ﷺ, who was born to his slave girl Maria Qubtiya, she passes away. Okay, she passes away. Afwan, he passes away. Ibrahim, the son of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he passes away, and people are like, the Prophet ﷺ was quite old, and he was very, very upset about this. He was very, very upset about this. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ, he had 4 daughters and 2, 3 sons, and each of them dies in his life, except one, Sayyidah Fatima. Even she passes away very close after the Prophet ﷺ's death. Look how look at the sacrifice that he went through. His his children passing away in front of him. Huh? That's amazing. Look at the difficulty that the Prophet ﷺ went through. And ultimately boils down to, what are we doing for this deen? And this whole Sirah kind of session and this course that we've been doing, and if people just feel that, oh yeah, it was really nice and well done and really wonderful, and that, okay, thank you very much, and just forget about it, then that has not, that's done nothing. It served us nothing. We can't say that we love the Prophet ﷺ and don't act in accordance to what he said, what he's come with. Okay, so inshallah, we've closed with this. We have no class next week. We have a class on the 21st. That will be the khatam, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, any questions? Any questions? طيب وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.